My name is Erin Colburn. I'm the pre-health advising coordinator for the College of Health Sciences at Boise State University. I'm joined with my colleague Shannon Kerr, pre-health advisor, and Ian Taylor, our peer advisor for the freshman students. We are getting the glorious opportunity to hear a little bit more about the Idaho Dental Education Program from the director, and take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you guys today. I am Jeff Weibargen. I direct the Idaho Dental Education Program. I graduated from Idaho State University in 1990. Boy, what was it? 7. And I went through dental school at Creighton University through the Idaho Dental Education Program, graduated in 2001, and I've practiced in Idaho Falls, Idaho since. And so I have a private practice in Idaho Falls. I see patients 4 days a week. And in about 2004, 3 or 4, I was asked to teach a class in the program, and so I did. And then the next year, I actually started directing the program when Dr. Fredrickson, who was the previous director of the program, went to Creighton and became the dean at Creighton University. So I've been the director of the program for, 16 or 17 years, and I love it. It's awesome. So I get to do a little bit of both, private practice, dentistry on the bulk of my time, but I get to do the dental education program, which is awesome because I get a chance to help choose my peers, and so which is kind of nice. So that's a little bit about me. My family, I'm married. We have 3 children. 20. We have our son Cole is 22, and then our daughter Kennedy is 20, and then our youngest is Mikkel is 17. So senior in high school. So they keep me pretty busy on the most part. So with that, it looks like we've got Brandon and Carson, and is it Cassie? Is that right? Am I pronounced, is that Cassie?
Yeah.
Awesome. And then Nate. So welcome to you guys. We may have some of our first year students may log in here in a bit. Possibly. In fact, there's Nate. So Nate Gardner is one of our first year students, and so he logged in. So you might have some questions for the students, and so they can kind of help answer some of those as from a student's perspective. But if I can get a little bit of information from you guys, so if we kind of go around a little bit. So Brandon, so for the students that are here with anticipation of potentially going to dental school, why don't you share a little bit about yourself with me, what stage in your academics you're in, and what your plans are. So Brandon,
Okay.
if you wouldn't mind starting off there.
Yeah, so I'm graduating here in May from Boise State, and I'm going to be applying to dental school. Once I complete dental school, I hope to hopefully go on further and specialize in periodontics. I've worked in periodontics as an assistant for the last 6 years, and I found that I really enjoy the work that we do in the field. I really like how we work with all the other fields. We kind of relate them all together and just provide comprehensive care. So that's just kind of what I want to do in the future.
Cool. Awesome. Well, welcome, Brandon.
Thank you.
Let's see, Carson. If Carson can hear me, Carson, you want to introduce yourself and tell us what stage in your academic career you're in and your plans?
Hey, I'm Carson. I'm currently a junior right now at Boise State. My plans are to graduate in the spring and then hopefully be able to apply for schools and all that in the fall.
Cool. So you'll apply next year then?
Yeah.
Is that right, Carson?
Yeah, that is.
Awesome. Now, are you related to the Schwannevelts in like the American Falls area, like Aberdeen, American Falls area?
Yeah, like all my uncles have done this IDEP program.
Yeah. Well,
Got a
cool.
few legacies.
There you go. So, and then let's see. So Cassie, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you and your stage in your academic career. Cassie, can you hear me? Maybe not.
Yeah, how about we move on to the next one and then Cassie,
Yeah.
when she
Sorry,
Oh, there she is.
You're fine, Cassie. If you wouldn't mind
my
just sharing.
connection is like really bad.
No worries.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, so my name is Cassie. I'm 18-year-old. I'm from France, and I'm gonna finish my sophomore year, and I'm a biology major. And my emphasis is biomolecular, and I would like to go to dental school, either Canada. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It's nice to chat with you. Nice to meet you. And then there's one other student who's on mute here. Is it Dyer or Dyer? How would I pronounce your name?
It's DR.
DR. Okay, thank you.
Hi, yes. Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, it's pronounced DR. Thank you, Aaron.
Cool. Well, DR, welcome. Would you please just introduce yourself to me and then what stage in your academic career you're in and what your plans are?
Yeah, so I am actually a senior in college right now. I've kind of, been really indecisive, and Aaron knows this about my majors. So I've stuck to psychology, and I do graduate in May, and then I will be going back to get my prereqs for dental school. And then from there, during that time, I want to study for my dental admissions test and apply to a few dental schools I'm looking at, and hopefully get accepted at one of them and go from there.
Awesome. Well, welcome, DR. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. So this is more about you guys than me. I mean, I have a presentation that I can give that we can talk about, but more importantly, I'd rather hear from you guys what you'd like to know. So what are some of the questions you have? And then I'll make sure that as we go through the process of our discussion today, that we answer all those. And then of course you can interject at any time with additional questions. So,
I will also keep track of the chat for you all if you guys want to do it through the chat mechanism if you need to, for one reason or another. But please pipe in, ask questions. I do like the idea of a casual experience where you guys can ask your questions, and that might spur us to interject and add some information. So I like that idea for sure.
So what is it that you guys would like to learn or know from this meeting today?
I would like to know what the program's like. In my understanding, it's a year opportunity in Pocatello. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, and maybe Nate could share a little bit about, and our IDEP guest could share a little bit about what it's like to go to school with 8 of your compatriots and what the program's like at the campus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in that information.
Okay, awesome. We'll definitely cover that. Other things that you guys want to know, and then after we get a few of these, we'll just kind of take off and start addressing them. So, Brandon, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I'm a little bit just curious about the application process for IDEP versus the application process for like Creighton separately. Like, is it also done through AdSAS? Is there a supplemental application? Just that kind of stuff. And I was also just generally wondering what that first year is like down in Pocatello, having working so closely with your like 7 other classmates.
Right. Perfect. Sounds good. We can definitely do that. Anything else that's on anybody's mind before we take off with some of these?
I have a question about the program. So does it help you apply for dental school, or is it already like part of the graduate school, or
Good
Yeah.
question.
I don't.
Okay. So let's address some of those. I'll start talking about those a little bit, and then feel free. Yeah, if there is a chat option, I mean, I can't see that at least on my part, I can't see it, but if Erin can see that and anybody just types into the chat, then she can notify us and we can address more of those questions. So let me hit just a little bit about what the IDEP is, and then a little bit about how you apply, and then we'll talk a little bit about what the program's like, and then we can kind of go from there. So, so the Idaho Dental Education Program is Idaho's state-assisted route for dental education, meaning we don't have a brick and mortar dental school in the state. So the state of Idaho purchases essentially 8 seats at Creighton University School of Dentistry in Omaha, Nebraska. So that allows us to accept 8 students into our program who come to Pocatello for their first year of dental education. And each student is on a scholarship. So Creighton's general tuition for this upcoming year is just shy of $70,000 a year for tuition. Our IDEP students will pay right around $32,000 for tuition for this year. So it's about a 54 or 55% scholarship. So the state ends up paying a little more than half of the tuition for the 8 students that get accepted to our program. So most of the requirements for our program would be the requirements for about any other dental school around the country. So in general, we accept students who will have a bachelor's degree by the time they enter the program. And so many students will apply starting about a year prior to them graduating from college. So students, the application cycle for this year will start in June, and that'll be for us in accepting students into the fall that we'll start our program in the next year, which is the same for all dental schools. So starting summer/fall of 2022. So most of our students, or if not all of our students, have a bachelor's degree in something. And then they have all the prerequisites for dental school, which the general prerequisites for dental school are going to be obviously a bachelor's degree. Some schools you can get accepted without a bachelor's degree, but it's pretty limited. So I wouldn't plan on that by any means. But then the prerequisite courses, at least a minimum of 1 year of biology with labs, a year of general chemistry with labs, a year of organic chemistry with labs, and a year of physics with labs, along with all the other things like your math and English and all those things that are necessary to graduate from college. Then you need to take the dental admissions test, which some of you have alluded to, which is a standardized test given by the ADEA, the American Dental Education Association. And that tests of various things, various sections to that. And so once you apply to dental school, it's the combination of your grades, so your GPA and your DAT scores that are kind of the first line of scrutiny by any dental school admissions committee. So having good grades and good DAT scores will put you in a good position. So in answer to your question, Cassie, so the IDEP program does not specifically aid students in the application process, other than like things such as this and maybe minor advising. But your pre-dental advisors there at Boise State, that's where they work super hard to help you in any way that they can to be prepared to apply and have all the things, all your ducks in a row to be able to do so. And in situations like this, we work closely with the pre-dental advising people in the various colleges to be able to provide assistance and help to them, information to them. And so all that stuff can be very, very helpful. In terms of application for IDEP versus Creighton, so in order to apply to the Idaho Dental Education Program, it's pretty straightforward. If you apply to Creighton University, and that is CREIGHTON University in Omaha, Nebraska, and you list your state of residency as Idaho on your ADSAS application, then ultimately your application will end up in our office. So if you're an Idaho resident that applies to Creighton, then Creighton will forward your application to us at IDEP here in Pocatello. So in addition, so every school that you apply to, so you'll get this ADSAS application, you'll list all the, check the boxes for all the schools you want to apply to, fill out all that application, put it with your grades and your DAT scores and all those things, send it in. Then each school will send you a secondary application in general. And it might have you write another essay or answer, every one will be a little bit different. And then they'll have you pay another small fee. And so once Creighton receives your secondary application and you're an Idaho resident, then they forward your application to us at IDEP. So that's all you need to do to apply to IDEP is apply to Creighton as an Idaho resident. We will start receiving applications from Creighton normally in about August or September. And then we will review all those applications. And like every dental school, your grades and your DAT scores are kind of the first thing that is kind of looked at. And then we will select from all the applications we receive, usually between 20 and 30 applicants to invite for interviews. And then we invite, so normally, on normal years, we invite those people to come here, see our facilities, take a tour, spend the entire day with us and interview with us. And so we'll usually have anywhere from 2 to 4 interview days during the fall. And those are usually in September and October. And then from that, we'll select our 8 students. And once we've selected our 8 students that we send offers to, and that usually doesn't occur until December 1st, which is standard throughout all of the dental school application process for all dental schools, then we notify Creighton as to which 8 students we've selected. There is one other thing you have to fill out, which we'd send to you from our office, which is an Idaho residency determination worksheet, which the State Board of Education in Idaho deals with, and it comes off of their website. And all that does is just certifies that you're a resident of Idaho. So it's a requirement that we cannot accept anyone into our program that's not a full-fledged or not considered to be an Idaho resident legally. Because taxpayers are funding the scholarship, it's mandatory that patient or students in our program are Idaho residents. So are there any questions up to this point in time about those things that we've talked about? And then once we do that, then we'll start to address a little bit about what the program's like. Okay. So what's the program like? I mean, we'll have, I think Nate, I'll share with you some of my experiences, and then we might have Nate, and I don't know if anybody's still, if any of the other students are there with Nate or not, but I graduated through the IDEP program, and now I get to work, right alongside the students on a weekly basis. And I would say that the IDEP program, from my experience as a student, was pretty awesome. Being able to start with the dental school process with a very small class size was pretty cool, pretty amazing. And so, you can't really fall through the cracks because, in most of the dental classes, it's just the 8 dental students and 1 instructor. So it's pretty cool and pretty awesome. And you get a lot of individualized attention. And there's kind of this process where just human nature, nobody wants to be the last. And so as such, everyone generally does quite well because there's only 8 students. And so everybody in general, they help each other, they encourage each other, they study together, and not always, but on the most part, that's pretty common. And and then all the students generally tend to do pretty well. So when they leave here after their first year and go and join the rest of their second year students at Creighton, then they end up being used to doing very, very well. And so they usually continue to do well. So the IDEP has a pretty good track record of having students that perform well here as well as at Creighton. In fact, the students that graduated this past year, so in the summer of 2020, we had 8 IDEP students that graduated, and 4 of those 8 were in the top 5 of the class. So out of 85 or 87 students who graduated from Creighton, so the 4 of the top 5 students in the class were IDEP students. So and I think that's in general, in large part because of, 1, the high quality student that we're able to have in the IDEP program, and 2, just that small class size that first year really kind of helps the students to kind of set off on the right foot. Additionally, I would say that there's some things we can do with a small class size that you can't do with a large class size. So for example, one of the classes that I loved most as a dental student was a class where we would go and visit private practicing dentists, or I shouldn't say private practicing dentists, in all sorts of different practice settings and arrangements. And they would share with, and most of them, almost all of them are IDEP and Creighton graduates. And they would share with us the reasons that they chose their specific practice situation. So if they're a specialist, they're an orthodontist or an endodontist, or if they're a solo practicing general dentist, or if they're in public health, or today we had a practice broker that met with the students. We had Dr. Lynn Gurney, who's a prosthodontist in Boise, that was one of our students and one of our graduates, and we met with him and his partner last Tuesday. And so so it's really nice to be able to kind of have that sort of a theme, where with 85 students you couldn't possibly do that, but with 8 students we can easily do that. They've met with Dr. Doug Sutton, who's an endodontist here in Pocatello, Dr. Marcus Neff, who's in public health. So to me, that was always my favorite class when I was a dental student. And I think that's, so things such as that, we're able to do here that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise because of the smaller class size. Nate, what are you still here? I gotta look at I'm sure you are.
Yep, I'm here.
Why don't you, what are your, and speak freely, but I mean, pros and cons, the good things and the bad things about being what the program's like.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other guys are on the call as well. They just don't have a camera, but IDEP's been really great. I like the small class size, like Dr. Weiss said, and it's nice because I feel like one thing that's a lot different about IDEP is we get taught by real dentists. Not that you don't get taught by real dentists at dental school, but they're mostly dentists who are in dental school all the time. So there's a residency here as well at IDEP. So we get to talk to the residents and they get to help us. And I've heard them comment to us several times. We're lucky to get taught by people like Dr. Y and also Dr. Reddish and some other dentists that practice in private practice, because they bring a different perspective than, dentists who've been in academia for a long time do. And I think I've enjoyed that. And I also like the scholarship. That's a humongous pro. As you guys go through the application process, you're going to become aware of how expensive dental school is, and the scholarship really is an amazing opportunity. And yeah, I've had a really great experience, and I would recommend it to just about anyone who's applying to dental school, if you can get in, to come to IDEP. Some cons, maybe just with Zoom, I haven't enjoyed the Zoom as much, but I think that should hopefully phase out some. And other than that, there's been a couple of our teachers that have just been like not super clear in their communication, but I'm not even sure if they'll be teaching in the future. And wherever you go, you'll have some professors, I'm sure even at Boise State, that maybe don't communicate things to you as well as you'd like. But overall, I've had a really positive experience. I don't know if the other IDEP guys want to comment.
Yeah, who else is here with IDEP? Any of you, like we see IDEP, but obviously you can't see who else is here, and anybody want to comment?
Yeah, it's Tyler, Dakota, and Dom here in the lab.
Somebody stole our camera.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have no idea where it is and we can't figure out the sound, but so it's coming out of this teeny little speaker out of that computer.
Well, we can hear you well, so we'll have to figure out what's going on with the camera, but we're glad you're there, and feel free to speak freely.
What's the question?
You guys still there?
I
You're
accidentally
on
muted
mute
us.
right now.
Sorry.
There you go.
There you go. So go ahead and speak freely.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's what's already been said. The small class size has been awesome. It's been really cool. Like you get to know your classmates really good. And in my undergrad, I didn't really get to know the other people in my class very well because we had huge classes. So it's been awesome to get help from the other guys, and they've been really cool. So
Awesome. Any other comments from you, from Dom, or who else is there? Dakota, Dom, and
Tyler, I would just say, I know this is going to be a big change for us next year, is doing projects. When you only have 8 of us and then you're basically one-on-one with your professor doing, new projects, new techniques, it's really helpful at first to have that one-on-one that you can get here.
yeah, and I've just loved being with the 8 of us. It's been great.
We've already, you three are graduated.
We spent a lot of time in the lab.
Yeah, no, just get your stuff. Oh, no, you've done it.
With the 8 of us, then we spend a lot of time together. So like today, for example, we've been in the lab for like 6 or 7 hours together, and we just have a great time. So that's fun.
awesome. Thank you guys. And tell Dr. Mooney hi.
He just took off.
So awesome. Well, it's kind of interesting. IDEP is kind of like a little fraternity in a way, like especially of like everyone. I'd like anywhere that you graduate, whatever your alma mater is, you kind of have a similar experience, whether you went through together at the same time or whether you went through at different times. This circumstances and the experience is similar, and so makes it kind of fun. And there's lots of IDEP grads that are more than willing to give back to the dental students as well, and share their thoughts and some advice and those types of things. And so it makes it kind of nice. So what other questions? I know there's some additional people here. So Ian Taylor, looks like Ian's here that wasn't here previously. Oh no, I'm sorry, Ian. You were here previously. Now I see I apologize. Now I see your picture. I'm like, he was here from the beginning. Let's see. So how do I pronounce R-A-N-A? Is it Rana or Raina?
It's
Rihanna?
Rana.
Say
It's
that.
Rana.
Rana?
Yes.
Well, welcome. I know you joined us and we're glad you're here. Do you have any questions specifically that we could answer for you about the IDEP program or dental school application in general?
Yes, I do have some questions because right now I am finishing my online business management, Bachelor of Business Management, and I already have Associate of Health Science, but I feel like there is some of the classes that need to be finished, but I'm not really sure. When I was having my meeting with Ma'am Erin, and she told me that some of the schools do require different classes to get into the school. But I already have biology 227, 228, which is anatomy and physiology. I'm not really sure if I still need to get to, microbiology or something like that.
Great questions. Every dental school does have some minor differences, or some dental schools may have some minor differences in classes that they require. So some classes require biochemistry to be taken as a prerequisite to dental school, some do not. In general, the thing that's the same with all of them would be a minimum of a year of biology with labs, a year of general chemistry, a year of organic chemistry, and a year of physics, all with labs. And so all of those disciplines except physics is part of, or is the material that's tested in the dental admissions test. And so, so what you would want to do, there's a publication, and I would imagine that they have it there at the college, which is the official guide to U.S. dental schools. And it's a publication that's put out by the American Dental Education Association, the ADEA. And that publication it has statistics, and it's put out every single year, and it will list all the requirements for every dental school. It will also list a bunch of statistics such as average DAT scores and average GPAs of those who apply, as well as those who get accepted, and where all those people that applied and got accepted are from. So it might show you, well, there's certain schools that are more favorable in accepting Idaho students than others. Might tell you that some schools don't accept any out-of-state students, for example. It'll tell you which schools are state schools, which means that they would be required to take a certain number of their students from their state, and then other schools that would be private, where they could take students from any state, and there's no requirements for them to take students from any states, other than if they have a contractual agreement like Creighton does with Idaho, Creighton does with Wyoming, a few things like that. So that guide, you can either purchase it online, which is ADEA, I think it's adea.org.
So the way that the ADA does it now is a Dental School Explorer. You get it from the ADA, and you do have to pay for the electronic copy to access it, but you can also, and I put the link to Dental School Explorer in the chat for all of you. The other way you could access it without having to pay is the American Dental Go Dental app prep. There's a map of all of the dental schools in the US, and then you have to individually go to each school and look at their admission profiles. The School Explorer is $26 a year, and they update it every 2 years with the year before that's profile. So the profile that's running right now is the 2019 class. So, but those are both in the chat, the links to both of those access points to that document that that we are sharing today. Also, there is a copy of it publication wise, but it is not as useful as everything he's sharing with you as it used to be. They've condensed it down quite a bit so they don't have to print as much. And so they would encourage you to access it via the web.
Awesome.
Thank you, Erin.
So what other questions do any of you have?
I had a question. So I have been through a few majors, and obviously I have classes from, those majors on my transcript while I was deciding what exactly I wanted to get my bachelor's in. So would you say that's kind of like dental schools kind of look at that as a negative or in a negative way? Because the student wasn't really sure what they wanted to get their bachelor's in, or is that something that doesn't really affect, the student's ability to possibly get accepted into this school, if that makes sense?
Absolutely, DR. Thank you. Yeah, I would say that I would not say whatsoever that would be a negative thing. I don't think that would be held as a negative thing at all. Most dental schools, I mean, I think across the board, it's not as important to them what your major is in, but just that a couple things. One, that you did well in your coursework. Two, that you've got all the prerequisite courses and that you did well in the prerequisite courses, which were, those that we've mentioned already a couple times. And then 3, that you, I mean, obviously your DAT scores, but then in addition to that, that it's more important that dental school admissions committees just know that you're committed to knowing you really want to be a dentist now. And so, I mean, how you came about that or how long it took you to get to that stage, in all honesty, is irrelevant. I don't think it would hold against you that you didn't know for the last 10 years, 10 years that you wanted to be a dentist. That's not a problem. So as such, so I would say, what can you do to demonstrate that you really will know you want to be a dentist? Well, one would be shadowing hours. I mean, some people might have the opportunity to work in a dental office, and which Brandon did have that, has done that. And so he's got a lot of experience there. But most people don't have that opportunity. And so making sure that you have enough shadowing hours to go through the process. It's very important to me, like when we interview people for IDEP, I would say in terms of quantifiable shadowing hours, you'd want to have a minimum, probably a bare minimum of 50. And if you had 100 or more, I don't think that would be even better. And the reason why, I always think, like, how do you know for sure that you really want to be a dentist? And if someone's shadowed for 30 hours or 40 hours in a dental office, I always think, how do you know that you want to sign on the dotted line to get into 6 digits worth of dental school expenses and potential debt to become a dentist, and you've spent maybe 1 work week hanging out in a dental office. So it's very important to us that we know for certain that somebody really wants to be a dentist, and they know what they're getting into and what the pros and the cons, what are the great things about the profession, what are the challenging things, what are the things that cause dentist stress, what are the things that, so on and so forth. So we just want to know that and feel comfortable. And I think any admissions committee would just want to be comfortable that you know what you're getting into. So I don't think it matters as much what your major is. We've had students that are art majors. We've had students that are, various business disciplines or psychology or accounting, and then of course all the sciences, chemistry and biology. I have a zoology degree, mammalian biology. If I had to do it over again, I would probably have done some form of business background with, but to each his own. Bottom line is, it doesn't really matter what your major is, that you just have all the prerequisite courses, and then that you can perform well on the DAT, and that admissions committees can be comfortable in knowing that you've researched the profession and you know why you want to be one, and you're committed to doing what's necessary to get there. So hopefully that answers your question, DR. And if you have any follow-up questions, I'm happy to answer.
That was a perfect explanation. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course. One other thing that always comes up, let me kind of address this a little bit. And then, sometimes, and I'll just answer questions that we get commonly asked. One is, sometimes people say, well, what about research experience and volunteer experience in just like with the Red Cross, or just general volunteer experience, or humanitarian trips, or extracurricular activities, basically. And I would say all those things are helpful and all those things are nice, and they will enhance any good application. I wouldn't say that they would compensate for an application that's maybe not as strong in the primary areas. So primary areas being, grades, DAT scores, shadowing hours, things of that nature. So the other thing that we get, so your grades and your DAT scores, I mean, like will be the thing that allows your application to get opened and every bit of the application scoured. So that's kind of like the first phase for the application. So if someone's DAT scores or GPA were significantly low, then in all sincerity, it probably just, your application may not get opened and every little bit of it looked at, because those, there's the bare minimum requirements initially. So that's kind of the first line. Once you get to past that first line, then of the admissions process, and you'll have schools that might get 3 or 4 or more 3,000 applicants. for 100 spots. And so, I mean, in our program, we will receive anywhere from probably 40 up to 120 applicants, depending on the year, over the years for our 8 spots. So, so that's the first line of defense, or the first line of this, scrutiny that takes place among the application process. Then the next part, so then you have the interview process, you have letters of recommendation that, and all those other things that come into the application. And letters of recommendation, I would say, I've never seen a situation where a letter of recommendation hurt an applicant. But there are times when letters of recommendation can significantly help an applicant, and sometimes can really maybe seal the deal. I can think of a few instances where that was the case. So most dental schools are going to say, on your ad test application, they might give you places to, I think it's 4 letters of recommendation, and some of those they'll want from your science instructors. And which, in my opinion, this is just me speaking, those are usually of very limited value, right? If your organic chemistry professor writes you a letter of recommendation, usually it's never a bad thing. It's usually always a good thing. They'll say, oh, he, was ranked number 7 in the class of 57 students. And they sat in the front and they asked good questions, and they were always kind and helped their peers and things of that nature. But, if you got an A in organic chemistry and a 22 on the DAT, then we already know that you're a good student and you've learned organic chemistry well. So really, I'd say the wild cards personally in the letters of recommendation category usually are from people who know you best, or know you in non-family people who know you best, and might be able to share something about you personally that would be helpful for an admissions committee. I can give you an example. We had a young man one time that applied, who during the summers he would go to Alaska, and he worked on a little fishing boat in Alaska every summer while he was in college. And he would work alongside the gentleman that owned the boat. And that gentleman wrote him a letter recommendation, and the punctuation and the grammar was not the best. The gentleman that wrote the letter was not, probably didn't probably have many years of formal academic education. But really, in a nutshell, what the letter said was, this young man's a significant individual. He works hard. He can do hard things. He's, been with me on this little fishing boat for a number of summers. And I wish he didn't want to become a dentist. I wish he wanted to continue to work with me, because he's so dependable and loyal and hardworking. And he said it in a much more eloquent way than I just did. But it was kind of one of those things where I'm like, well, being on a little fishing boat in Alaska is not an easy task, and dental school sometimes is not super easy. And so anyway, the way that he wrote it, I thought, okay, this is somebody that we'd want as part of our class. On the most part, once you interview, it's more a matter of that. Once you get an interview, everyone they know that you have the minimum qualifications academically and in all other ways to be accepted to the school. So then it's just a matter of saying, will this person be a good fit for our program? So are they kind and friendly and sincere, and someone that that the rest of their classmates would enjoy having as a classmate? So the interview process is more to find out those types of things than anything else. I would say in an interview process, if you're asked opinion questions, feel free to share your opinion, right? I mean, and there are times when I'll feel like in an interview, someone is telling me what they think I want to hear, and which I think on the most part doesn't give people a warm fuzzy, right? So just be yourself, and be prepared for the types of questions you think you'll get asked. Of course, they're going to ask why you want to be a dentist. Of course, you're going to be asked what you think being a dentist is like, what being a dental student you think will be like. Know a little about the school that you're applying to. So when you're interviewing, you should know. So sometimes I'll ask people, well, why Creighton? And it's always interesting if someone says, well, I want to go to Creighton because I know they have like a really highly ranked academic research program. And I think you haven't done your research too much, because even though Creighton does well with research, they're known for their clinical education of general dentists. And so anyway, so just be up to speed on each dental school and what their strengths are, what they do well, and have answered in your mind, why do you want to apply to this school? Why do you want to come here? You can be really honest about that. Well, I have family that lives close by. I mean, in addition to the fact that this is a very good school, I mean, whatever that is. So, so those questions usually kind of come up, things about interviews, about, extracurricular type things. I mean, there's things that to me bode very well for people. If someone has a 4.0 and high DAT scores, but they've not been involved in any extracurricular activities, they've not had a job, for example, while they work through college. Well, someone who has a 3.5 and a 19 or a 20 that's worked a significant amount during college and been involved in other things, you go, that might pack more weight than someone with, impeccable grades and impeccable DAT scores. So it is kind of nice to see, that there is a balance. The other thing I would say is someone with, once we do the interview process, someone with lesser grades and lesser DAT scores may get in ahead of someone with higher grades and DAT scores. At that point in time, it's about the individual, not about what the marks are. And so, so that's kind of, I think people question that sometimes. Well, if somebody else has higher grades and DAT scores than me, maybe I won't get in, and they will. And maybe the opposite of that is true. So having said that, it never hurts to have good grades and good DAT scores. Just, it's competitive. There's far more a number of applicants than available spots across the board. But so questions or thoughts from anyone? I'm happy to make sure we get everyone's questions answered.
Yes, I have a question. I know you were talking about having a good grade in DT and also having a good GPA, but I have been hearing from my professors that, oh, if you want to go to dentistry school, you have to have A. And that is what I'm a little bit confused. And then I'm hearing from others that say that even C can be better, but it all depends how you do your interview. But I know, for example, if I do really well in my interview and everything, but if nobody even opened my application, for example, I'm not saying right now I'm doing so well in my schools and everything, even though English is my 7th language. So I'm so proud of myself. But there are things that I'm keep hearing from different people, but I think it's gonna be good if you can answer me, because you already on the spot and you know how you want to accept students. So can you please talk a little bit about that?
I would say as an Idaho student, I mean, if you're an Idaho resident, if you're a resident from any state that doesn't have their own brick and mortar dental school, your grades and your DAT scores are extremely important. I mean, anywhere they're important, but as a student from a state that doesn't have its own dental school, it's even more important. So does that mean that someone has to have straight A's? Absolutely not. But I would say that's what I would strive for. So it just depends on the competitive nature of the applicant pool for each year. So we will get in all of our applicants, and then we will select from, we do what's like a little profile score that's made up of their grades, their DAT scores, their primarily, then letters of rec, shadowing hours, extracurricular activities, and we put that together and make a composite score, kind of tabulated, and then we will invite the top 20 to 30 to interview for the 8 spots. In general, I can just say over the past number of years, the top 20 or 30 have generally had a 3.5 GPA or above, and in the 19 to 20 DAT score range and above. And so, so that's kind of where things have fallen. So if someone says, oh, it doesn't, I mean, are there times when dental students get accepted and they have a C here or there on their transcript? Sure, at times. And if you lived in a state that had a state-supported dental school, or in a state that had more than one state-supported dental school, then you'd see that the admission statistics of those who get accepted are probably much lower, because they have far more numbers of, much greater number of opportunities. So Kentucky, for example, has 2 state-supported dental schools. And so there's over 100 plus dental students that get accepted from Kentucky to one of those 2 schools every year. Idaho has 8 spots for any kind of state-supported program, like scholarship program. So, so it is important, but it's not everything. But in our program, or any program, being able to be selected as one of those who get an interview, that's the important part, because once you get an interview, then there's more of an even playing field, regardless of what grades and DAT scores are amongst those who've already met the requirements to be able to be selected for an interview. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And Aaron, do you have anything to add to that? I mean, you see this from students that are applying to, IDEP and everywhere else. I mean, what are your thoughts in regards to that?
I think all the students in the room have probably heard me say once or twice that it needs to be an upward trajectory. I think we all stumble, we all make mistakes, we all have a bump in the road. But if we can't just demonstrate a well-rounded focus where we have more A's than B's, more B's than C's, and very few C's, if any, and when we do, we have an upward trajectory. In other words, okay, so Chem 111, inorganic chemistry, the first one sucked, and you got a B. And then the next one, you rocked it and got an A+. That's a strong demonstration of your ability to be resilient and grateful. And I think that they take that into account, at least in my experience. What I would say is that if we have the roller coaster ride, that's a harder demonstration of why you're going to be good at this point. And so I think that it's about being on your A game and doing your best work, and not giving up. And I also think that they do take into account all those other things. I think you could have a straight A GPA and a high DAT score, but not be real presentable in terms of a real life human that really wants to care for patients and concerned about oral health. They're not going to get in, because they're missing the bigger part that makes up what a dentist for me is. So that's my perspective on it. So I just encourage students to strive for their best work. And, we're realistic with students too, so.
Absolutely. Thank you. What other questions? Anybody have any other questions we can answer?
Yeah, I had a question about interviews again, and I wanted to know, when do they usually take place? Like, is it during the academic year or over the summer?
Yeah, so the application cycle starts in June of the year prior to when you'd want to start dental school. So here in June, those people who are applying for dental school to start in the fall of 2022 will start to apply. So applications go out generally in June, July, August. People can continue to apply during that time. And dental schools will generally do most of their interviews in the fall of the year prior to starting to the cycle that those students would start dental school. So this fall, the fall of 2021, we will interview those applicants that started applying in June. So June, July, August, September. So usually that will take place in the fall. And then all dental schools, you cannot notify someone that they've been accepted to your program until, and every year, sometimes this is a little bit different, but usually it's December 1st. With COVID, it was a little bit different this last year, but generally it's December 1st. So then those students' first round acceptances will go out December 1st. So to answer your question specifically, the interview process starts in the fall during the academic year prior to when students would start dental school a year later, roughly, or close to a year later. So we'll interview this fall in 2021 for those students that will be accepted and start dental school in 2022.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know. And yeah, you said June, July, and August because I thought it was during the fall that the application opened for some reason.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. You can apply into the fall. So if you look at the application cycle, it starts in June, but people could be applying even until the next spring. I would say that your chances would diminish in getting accepted the later you apply. There will be some schools that, like, there's still students that will be interviewing at various schools around the country into the spring and like in the winter, so like January or February usually, but those schools have already started accepting students, so usually that would mean that you'd be applying. I mean, they would still be looking for some students, but it would be much later in the game. So mostly with the IDEP program, our class is usually set by the end of December or usually into the first part of January. So even though they'll say you can apply clear up into the spring, the sooner you apply, the better. Programs will not wait to find, another highly qualified applicant that may not have applied yet. They'll start with those that have already applied, and they'll go through the process and then, get their acceptances from that. We've had very highly qualified students that apply in October or November, and everything's already set. We won't, we're done interviewing. And they might have been a very good applicant and someone who may have been accepted, but because they were kind of late to the game, no school is going to wait for you. So you want to be early to the game, is my advice, even though it will say, oh, you can apply even into the spring. I would never advise that in terms of being a good plan if your goal is to get in. And so, which everyone's goal is to get in, obviously, right? So does that answer your question?
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And also, so by this time, like by the time we apply, so we should already have like our DAT, but like what about the prerequisite classes?
Yeah.
Should they be already like, since it's like the beginning of our senior year, we should apply, right?
Yeah, in general, you'd want, when you apply, in an ideal world, you'd have all your prerequisite courses done and you'd have your DATs already taken by the time you apply. The one exception that we sometimes see is physics, because physics is not on the DAT. There are times when sometimes people will take physics during their senior year, but they've already applied at the end of their junior year. But in general, so the thing, if that's the case, then on your ADSAS application, there's a place where you can list the courses you will take during your senior year or during the upcoming academic year. And schools would, if you hadn't taken one of the prerequisite courses yet, then obviously that would be of paramount importance that you listed that there and that you actually take that course. But in general, so when you'd apply, you'd have the DAT already done and all your prerequisites, or at least a bulk of your prerequisites already done. So that would be super important. So some of the time, if you didn't have that done, then some people end up saying, well, I'll apply at the end of my senior year. And then after my senior year, then I'll take a gap year. I'll apply to dental school, but I'll be out of, not in school during the year that I'm applying and then start the next year. But if you don't want to have a gap year, then you'd want to have everything done by the end of your junior year in order to apply that summer and into the fall of your senior year.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's really helpful.
All right, well, it is 5 o'clock, and what I'm happy to do is I can leave Ian Taylor, our peer advisor, in the room. If you have a couple more questions for the group from IDEP, I have to head off to our application workshop. So if anybody is interested in attending that, that's at 5. It was great to see all of you. Thank you so much for your effort. If there are some more questions, I'll let you guys ask them. And thank you so much, Jeff. I really appreciate your efforts, and
Absolutely.
I will stay in touch.
Sounds good. Thank you, Erin.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Does anyone have any other question?
Yes, I have a really quick question. Can you please talk about the scholarship requirement?
The scholarship requirement is just that you're an Idaho resident. And so you have a legal residency in the state of Idaho, and that you have applied to Creighton University's dental school as an Idaho resident. So if we accept you into our program, and you have to be an Idaho resident to be able to be accepted. But once we accept any of our students that get accepted, they automatically get a scholarship.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions at all?
I'm good. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you. And Ian, thank you so much. If there's anything we can do for you guys over there, don't hesitate to holler. Please
All right.
know. And hope you guys have a good evening.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you.